All right, another Sunday, and let's hear about all the accomplishment the administration has done so far this year. It's been a crazy year. Let's take a look at Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo. By the way, before you go anywhere, make sure you hit the like button. My name is Noel. Over here, just being verbal, just trying to put out the news out there because somebody got to say it. But let me not hold you up. It's crazy what's going on. Let's take a look.
Hey, prayers for America for the new year ahead. I loved lighting a candle at St. Patrick's Cathedral this week after my exclusive visit with His Eminence, Timothy Cardinal Dolan, about the road ahead as Pope Leo appoints a successor to lead the nearly 3 million church members in New York. Cardinal Dolan is the Archdiocese of New York, and he will be greatly missed with huge shoes to fill. His Eminence will join me shortly right here. Plus, President Trump speaks to the nation before closing the books on 2025 to review his first 11 months back in office, including arguably his biggest accomplishment yet, securing the border. Coming up, border czar Tom Homan on securing the nation and the fight to follow the law. Plus, high-stakes meeting in Miami this weekend as President Trump pushes on to end the war on Ukraine. Four-star General Jack Keane with analysis of the peace talks underway. Then Trump Media Technology Group merging with a nuclear fusion company with hopes to fuel the data center and AI revolution. CEO Devin Nunes, former Intelligence Committee chairman, on the new direction. Plus his analysis of Jack Smith's behind closed door interview this week. It's all right here, right now on Sunday Morning Futures. And we begin this Sunday morning with President Trump's agenda after the commander-in-chief addressed the country last week to outline his first 11 months in office, detailing his kept promises on foreign policy, economic policy, such as reining in inflation and growing the economy. But by far, the president's biggest accomplishment and kept promise has been open border. In November, just over 30,000 illegal migrants were encountered nationwide, continuing a trend of historic lows. And for a seventh straight month, there has been no release of illegal migrants into America by Border Patrol. Since January 21st, total daily enforcement encounters along the southwest border are down 95% compared to the Biden administration, with 10 months under President Trump resulting in fewer apprehensions than just 1 month during Biden's term. And under Joe Biden, there were also hundreds encountered who were actually on the U.S. terrorist watch list. Meanwhile, more than 600,000 illegal immigrants have been deported by ICE, with another 1.9 million self-deporting. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is White House border czar Tom Homan. Tom, great to have you this morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
How would you assess the president's work on securing this border so far in 2025?
Unprecedented. Nothing like this in the history of the country. Look, we got the most secure border in the history of this nation. The most secure ever. And that's based on real data. I just came back. I just did a border review in San Diego, Texas, and Arizona. I toured the border by air, by boat, and by four-wheel drive. 3 days on the southern border, Maria. I didn't see a single illegal alien. And I've been doing this since 1984. Even though back when I was in Border Patrol, 3 days, a single illegal alien in my sights. It's the most secure border ever. And by doing that, as you said, it's down 95%. How many aliens aren't dying making that journey? How many pounds of fentanyl aren't getting in and killing Americans? How many known suspected terrorists are not crossing that border because the Border Patrol is 100% vigilant on that line, stopping all the entries? It's incredible. Never seen anything like it in my 40-year career.
Well, that is incredible. But, you know, we also have to take a look at what went on under Joe Biden and the 4 years of the Biden administration and that wide open border. There were people who came in during the Biden years and actually have continued to commit crimes. How significant is that right now, given the fact that these news stories of the last couple of weeks have people dying at the hands of illegals?
Well, look, it's extremely significant. I said for 4 years during the Biden administration on this very network that what he created is the biggest national security failure in the history of this nation. because we know they weren't vetting people properly. I said it over and over again when Secretary Mayorkas was saying all these people were released, the millions have been properly vetted. You can't say that. We don't have access to other countries' criminal data.
Right.
El Salvador doesn't have an NCIC. Some of these countries like China and Russia, where thousands those people came across, do you actually think they're going to share any national security data with us? So they weren't properly vetted. We didn't have access to that information.
Yeah, and yet Democrats still fight President Trump, and they try to stop his agenda. What about all these attacks on ICE? What is the status of that right now? Because I know that Democrats do not want to follow the law when it comes to the border protection.
Again, the threats against ICE are up over 8,000%. Actual assaults are like 1,300%.
Wow.
So again, never seen anything like this in my life. And but the good thing is, Department of Justice under Pam Bondi is prosecuting at record numbers for violations 18 USC 111, which is impeding, interference, putting hands on an ICE officer. So I looked at the numbers the other day. I've never seen so many prosecutions in my life. So we're sending a strong message. There is zero consequence. You put a hand on an ICE officer. If you interfere with an ICE officer, you'll get a set of handcuffs and you're going to go to jail and you're going to be federally prosecuted. So I wish they'd just stop. I did a speech from the board the other day. I wish the hateful rhetoric from congressmen, mayors, and governors would stop, because I said it back in March. There's going to be bloodshed. Unfortunately, there has been bloodshed. I don't want more bloodshed, but unless they stop doing what they're doing, there will be more, and I worry about that every day.
Well, these are also federal judges, Tom. Let's face it. There was a Milwaukee County judge found guilty of obstructing federal immigration agents in a courthouse incident. You know the story. I mean, how much of that is there out there right now, where there are people in powerful positions like federal judges trying to stop President Trump's agenda, even though it's the will of the people?
That's clear what I just said. You cross the line, you'll be prosecuted. Zero tolerance. There's going to be consequences. So even if you're a judge, there are consequences for violating the law. So that's a clear example of some of the radical judges who want to constantly rule against us because they've been radicalized. They don't believe in President Trump and his mission. Look, we attempted to remove hundreds of children to their homeland because the children want to be reunited with their parents. The parents wanted their children home. We had arrangements to send these children to Guatemala. We were sued, and a judge issued a stay saying we can't reunite these families. I want to mention one other thing. Just reported last week, 300,000 children went missing under Joe Biden. They weren't looking for them. They couldn't find them. So far, the Trump administration kept its promise to American people. They've already located 129,000 of these children, thanks to the work of FBI, DHS, and HHS.
That is incredible, Tom. Thank you so much for your efforts on that. Now, this morning, you are coming to us from Arizona. You are going to be one of the leading speakers at the Turning Point USA conference and rally, AmFest, that is America's festival. Tell us the messages that you're going to send, because we were talking earlier about young people, and I know that this is something that I spoke also with Cardinal Dolan about. There has been a movement with young people moving to God, looking to religion. After all that we've seen in terms of Charlie Kirk's death and those most recent shootings, what can you tell us about young people today? What is your message at the Turning Point event this morning?
Well, I want to talk about, of course, I want to talk about successes of the President Trump administration, that we have the most secure border in history of the nation, which saves lives. Look, when 95% less people are coming, how many women aren't being sexually assaulted making that journey? How many children aren't dying making that journey? How many Americans aren't dying from drug overdoses? But most importantly, I want to talk to you because you're right. There's been a change. There's been an awakening of the younger folks. I look forward to talking eye to eye with them all over today because they are wakening up. I think what happened to Charlie Kirk has started a movement that can't be stopped. And I'm happy to be a part of that and educate these people on the truth. Not what you read in the media. I'm going to educate them on the truth of what President Trump's actually doing for this country.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. I actually witnessed it myself, been to the border 6 times, and I actually was there in the first term of President Trump and saw little girls walking hand in hand, crossing the border. It was dangerous. They were right there near the drug cartel leaders. It's just unbelievable. So thank you for your work. Merry Christmas to you, Tom. Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas.
All right. White House reporters are Tom Homan. Thank you. And now this.
There's no peace deal that Ukraine, there is no peace deal unless Ukraine agrees to it. But there's also no peace deal unless Russia agrees to it. We are just trying to find whether there's common ground that we can make happen. And maybe that's not possible. Maybe it is. Maybe that's not possible right now.
That's Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the Trump administration's efforts to secure a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, meeting with the head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund in Miami to continue discussions over ending the war in Eastern Europe. Joining me now is Fox News senior strategic analyst, retired four-star General Jack Keane. General, great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, delighted to be here, Maria.
I want to get your analysis on this latest peace deal from President Trump. There is complaining because Putin will not give up any territory. He does not want to agree to some of these terms in the peace deal. And Zelensky doesn't want Putin to have any of that territory. So how is this war going to end if Zelensky does not want Putin to take any more territory and Putin is not budging?
Well, these peace talks, you got to give the president and his team a lot of credit here, for their patience, number one, and persistence in trying to pursue a permanent peace deal here. This has been going on for a number of weeks.
Yeah.
And, all sides talk about it being constructive. That's diplomatic speak for the fact that, yes, but there's issues that need to be resolved. And that's kind of where we are. There's three parts that are taking place here. One is the 20-point plan. And the issue in the 20-point plan is, as you mentioned, it's land and territory. Russia wants some territory they have not been able to take in 11 years and not been able to take in the last 2 years, although they have tried quite earnestly to do so. Ukraine doesn't want to give up that territory. And if there is an agreement where Ukraine gives up some territory or Russia gives up some territory, then you come to the second part, which is security guarantees. Comprehensive security guarantees have been developed. The United States has had a part of that. The Ukrainians have had a part in it, and the Europeans. And what am I talking about here? Is the United States command and control of a multinational force that has an air, land, and sea component to it, with security forces obviously on the ground inside Ukraine, air power overhead, and also ships in the Black Sea that are making certain that there's no incursions there. This is to enforce a peace deal, and Ukrainians need that to deter Russia from reattacking. And then the third thing is a reconstruction and recovery of Ukraine itself. So it's essentially an economic peace. All of those have issues associated with them, Maria, and it remains to be seen. Two presidents have spoken this weekend. Putin, in his press conference annual, pretty much the same as he's always said. He really does want Ukraine. He wants them to demilitarize. He doesn't want any foreign troops. And clearly, his objective has not changed, and that is to topple the government in Ukraine and put in a stooge government like he used to have many, many years ago. Zelensky, however, made a statement saying he's willing to go to an elections if there is a ceasefire. He wants the people who have been displaced to be able to vote in that election inside Ukraine. There's almost 4 million of them. And he wants to put together an infrastructure for the 4 to 6 million of Ukrainians who are outside the country so they can vote. And also he wants his military to be able to vote. Obviously, you have to have a ceasefire to do all of that. That's quite a contrast from where Putin is. What does that say to us? Zelensky does want peace. The United States does want peace. I think it remains to be seen where Putin is on this, frankly.
Well, it's a great point that you mentioned in terms of these elections that should happen. But Ukraine said it's ready for elections. Zelensky said after President Trump repeated claims that Kyiv was using war to avoid holding elections. How are you going to have an election, though, if you don't know if it's going to be safe? I mean, Zelensky said, we're ready for elections if partners guarantee security. Can that happen?
Well, if we got a ceasefire and we have security guarantees in place, then yes, it can happen. Obviously, you can't do it during conflict itself. I mean,
Right.
The soldiers have a right to vote, and the people are displaced, and people in the contested areas are certainly not going out and risk their lives to vote. That's just the reality of it. So that has never been realistic. that we'll have the elections, while the war is going on. And there's martial law declared. But this is a major step forward that Zelensky has taken. And I think it demonstrates that he and his people truly want peace, but they don't want it on Russian terms. They want it on terms that are fair to both sides.
Yeah. And you make a great point in terms of the potential for a stooge election, a stooge government that is handpicked by Russia to run Ukraine. And that sort of sounds like what China tries to do in Taiwan and elsewhere, but they were not successful last time around in Taiwan. General, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for your analysis this morning, sir.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Maria.
Merry Christmas, General Jack Keane. Thank you, sir. Quick break, and then my exclusive with His Eminence, New York Archbishop Timothy Cardinal Dolan, as he is set to lead his final midnight mass at St. Patrick's on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and begin a new agenda in the new year. That's next. Welcome back. A major shakeup in the country's Catholic leadership with a changing of the guard for the Catholic Church in New York in the year ahead. As the leader of the Archdiocese of New York, Timothy Cardinal Dolan's resignation was accepted by the Vatican. And Pope Leo, then the first U.S. Pope, appointed a relatively unknown cleric from Illinois, Bishop Ronald Hicks, to lead the second largest Catholic diocese with nearly 3 million church members in New York. I spoke with His Eminence at St. Patrick's Cathedral this week as he looked back on his 17 years at the helm, including leading the reconstruction of St. Patrick's Cathedral in this exclusive.
You submitted your resignation.
Yes.
Why? Because you turned 75?
Yeah, you have to. It's canon law, church law, that when a bishop reaches 75, you must submit your resignation to the Bishop of Rome, the Holy Father. So I did. And about 2 weeks later, I got the letter back saying, yeah, it was good you sent it in. Every bishop has to. The Holy Father, always, this is the same for everybody. The Holy Father accepts your resignation, nunc pro tunc. Do you remember your Latin? He accepts your resignation now, nunc pro tunc, for then. The then being when a successor is appointed. So really, what will define it, my resignation's already been accepted. I continue as Archbishop at the Holy Father's wish. But so what will change status is the appointment of a successor. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So Cardinal Dolan, I mean, you are a loved figure in New York and across the country.
Well, you don't do bad yourself.
No, people do not want to see you go. You're not going to completely retire, right?
No,
what are you going to do?
And
Have you thought about this?
Yeah, because people know, when you turn 75, any bishop, pretty soon he's going to be retired. So people know that, and they'll start writing you. So I got some requests, like to go to some universities, just to be on campus, maybe to take a sabbatical, maybe to teach a course. I even got a request, an offer to write a book. I got an offer to do a documentary on the status of the church in the United States. So things come in, and I'm just going to kind of appreciate the chance to set my own schedule.
So how do you think things will be different in the new year?
Yeah, that's why we can read the Bible with such depth, because even though some of it was written 3,000 years ago, you're thinking, wow, this could be written today, because it's talking about the eternal truths. So many things aren't going to change. There's usually cosmetic change. The only thing we know for sure, Maria, is God remains the same. We have that beautiful line in the Bible, Jesus Christ, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Yep, things changed last year. Things are going to change in 26. He and he alone is always the same, and thank God he is. That's why we often use that anchor or that rock to symbolize the divine, because he's always with us. He's always the same. Semper idem. Latin, always the same.
Beautiful. You were there, I mean, at the conclave.
Yeah.
I want to get your take on how that was. I mean, I watched you on television until the new pope was named.
The conclave probably began about 5 o'clock on Wednesday in the Sistine Chapel, locked up, nobody but ourselves. And it was done within 24 hours. So the conclave itself is brisk. Not always true throughout church history, but the last two were certainly pretty brisk. What's fascinating about the conclave is what happens ahead of time. In those 2 intense weeks where the College of Cardinals come together every day but Sunday for intense meeting, we call them the congregation meetings. where all the cardinals will speak their mind. There's no campaigning. There's not people standing up saying this guy should be Pope. But there is everybody standing up saying, this is the kind of Pope we need. These are the challenges that Holy Mother Church is facing now. I found those. I've been in one in 2013, so this was my second rodeo. I found that fascinating, to listen to bishops from all over the world kind of describe what he says. And you get kind of pretty specific about Pope Francis. We loved what Pope Francis did here, here, here. The new Pope must keep that up, but now he must also turn his attention to here, here, here. That I found fascinating. And that really, you kind of go in then to the conclave with pretty well versed on the challenges of the church.
What are you most proud of as you look back at your time here?
Well, now that you mention it, and I wouldn't have thought of this until you sat down there, I guess what I'm most proud is that people like you were saying, we kind of hate to see you go.
Everyone's saying that.
That moves me very much to say, wow, you know, I'm not going to Frankie Campbell's here for a wake. That people say, we're going to miss you. That doesn't mean they're not going to enthusiastically welcome my successor and work with him as exuberantly as they did with me. But it means a lot to me when people say, hey, we're going to miss you. We hope you stick around. Will you still be able to say Mass? Will you still be able to preach? Yes, yes. Will you still come to the parishes? Will we still see you at events? Yes. Okay. And when they smile and say, we're glad about that, I smile and say, I'm glad about that too.
You put your mark on this in such a way, even down to leading the complete renovation of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
You got time to go over?
I'd love to go and walk around with you.
I'm extraordinarily grateful.
You have to be extraordinarily grateful and proud of what you did.
We can't forget the role my predecessor, Cardinal Egan, played. So when I got here, Maria, in 2009, he said to me, you know, you got a big task because we have to repair and we have to renovate the cathedral. And he said, I kind of got the plans already. He said, we've kind of already got the blueprints here. We couldn't do it. We were ready to go. I was ready to start trying to raise the money when we found out that Pope Benedict was going to come. So he said, well, we have to have the cathedral open then. We can't have scaffolding all over. So Pope Benedict came in 2008. I show up in 2009, and poor Cardinal Egan said, sorry, you're going to have this. So I got to give him a lot of credit too. But that was an early challenge, and it's kind of still going on. We still got the $14 million repair of the organ. You know, don't you find it like if you're remodeling a house, you say, why didn't we just do it all at the beginning? I wish we could have, but you know, you try to be frugal. You say, we've raised this much money. Let's go ahead and do it. We can do the organ later. So that's the kind of stuff we're still doing. Never is going to be done, just like a beautiful home is always going to need repair. But that's something for which I'm very grateful. And I'll tell you this, Maria, it's an icon of the cooperation that you see in New York. How many people are Catholic faithful, are Jewish people, people of no religion at all who said, we love St. Patrick's, count us in. And they put their money where their mouth was. So it was a real community endeavor.
I have a final question for you because an incident happened to me. I was at a public place once and someone came over to me and just went crazy screaming at me. They didn't like my coverage of President Trump and all of this stuff. And it really rattled me. I went home, I was crying. I told my dear 93-year-old mother. And my mother said, oh, Maria, that's crazy. Keep your head up high. And don't forget one important thing. Keep God in your heart.
Wow. How beautiful.
I thought, Mom,
thank God for moms.
What incredible advice. Keep God in my heart.
So I ask you, moms.
How do I keep God in my heart?
It reminds me of what my mom said. So 17 years ago, when I was told by Pope Benedict to be Archbishop of New York, the night before the announcement, I called my mom. And I was in Milwaukee then. I said, Mom, the Pope's named me Archbishop of New York. She said, oh, honey, congratulations. I said, Mom, I'm kind of scared. I don't know if I'm up to this, and I don't know if I'm going to do a decent job. She said, honey, God never asks us to do something without helping us do it. And she's like your mom, okay? How do you keep God in your heart? By recognizing, Maria, that he's already there, all right? You're baptized. You have the gift of faith. You have the gift of the Holy Spirit. Even people that aren't have the reflection of the divine within. So how do you keep God in your heart? By recognizing that he's already there, and the only way you're going to lose him is if you kick him out.
Did you send over the bank records of Devin Nunes or Trump supporters to the special counsel when he wanted that information?
People have to grow up here, okay, and stop making up things and stuff like that. So, and I can't talk about an individual account. We do not bank people, debank people's religious or political affiliations. Number two is I don't like debanking people. We live under very strict rules and regulations and requirements, and to protect the country, and we have to report things to the government. We're required to report things to the government. We don't give information to the government just because they ask. We're subpoenaed. We're required by court to give it to the government. And I've been following subpoenas with this administration, the last administration, the administration before.
And that was J.P. Morgan Chase Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon responding to claims from Trump media that it was debanked and that its bank records were sent to former special counsel Jack Smith as part of his Arctic Frost investigation that targeted President Trump and his supporters. On Wednesday, Smith sat for a closed-door deposition in front of the House Judiciary Committee for more than 8 hours, saying politics had no role in his investigations and prosecutions of President Trump. Joining me now with reaction is Trump media CEO and chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, Devin Nunes. Devin, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And you've got big news of your own. So we're going to get to Trump Media and Technology's merger in a moment. But first, you just heard Jamie Dimon's response to you telling me on this program that J.P. Morgan sent over your bank records to Jack Smith. How do you respond?
Well, what I can tell you is just sticking to the facts, and that is that the Florida Attorney General, Uthmeier, has an investigation into J.P. Morgan, maybe others, for getting our bank records. We are a Florida company. We expect to be protected. We believe Florida laws were broken. I think this is potentially even a criminal investigation. So we're happy that the Florida Attorney General is looking into this. We hope that J.P. Morgan cooperates. I'll take Jamie Dimon at his word that maybe he didn't know about it. I find that hard to believe. I understand he wants to cooperate with investigations, but after watching the witch hunt that went on for the last 10 years against President Trump and his family involving this whole Russia hoax, he or his people should have known better. And I won't get into the back and forth that we had at the time, but we essentially called him out and the bank, not him personally, but we called out J.P. Morgan at the time and said, this looks very political. So, that's all information that we will turn over to the Florida Attorney General, and we may take actions of our own. We'll just see where this investigation lands.
So, what about the comment and the fact that he made, and it's true, they got subpoenaed, okay? Jack Smith is using corporate America to do its dirty work. They subpoenaed Verizon. They subpoenaed AT&T. They subpoenaed the banks. They wanted bank records, phone records. Even Kevin McCarthy, he was one of the leading people in the country. He was Speaker of the House. And what happened? AT&T gave it up because they got subpoenaed. And Jack Smith wanted his phone records.
Yeah, and part of what needs to happen here is people that broke the law need to be criminally prosecuted. So it's nice that the Congress is looking into this, but ultimately the American people, the Department of Justice, the FBI have had a very dark chapter in U.S. history. It has to be cleaned up. There's multiple investigations, at least reported, that are going on into all of these witch hunts that went on against the president. And as you know, I've said for many, many years now, number one, this was all a cover-up and a con job by the DNC, by President Obama to cover up for what? For Hillary Clinton's emails. I know this goes back a long way, but that's what started in 2016. We know that there was a cover-up. That's where the conspiracy begins, and it goes all the way to the raid at Mar-a-Lago and then into Jack Smith's phony investigation. And, furthermore, Maria, just what did we learn this week? Another important fact. I came on this show right after the Mar-a-Lago raid, and I said, this is outrageous. I know exactly what these lowlifes are looking for. They're looking for our report, the House Republican report that we did, because it's a damning report. Now, the report wasn't at Mar-a-Lago, but they went looking for it. So the National Archives, which made that referral, needs to be investigated. And I think this whole, now that you have the FBI itself saying at the time they were uncomfortable with raiding Mar-a-Lago and the fact that they were looking for our document, should, I think, give people pause for a document that they had no evidence or even a clue that Mar-a-Lago had our document. That, by the way, was sitting over at the CIA locked behind a safe in a safe.
Yeah. And I have the document in my hands right now. The majority staff report on the intelligence community assessment, Russia's influence campaign targeting the 2016 U.S. presidential election. In this report, there are damning pieces of evidence that shows that this was actually a witch hunt from day one. And you think they wanted that, and that's why they went to Mar-a-Lago. But Devin, we've been talking about this for 10 years, and still I haven't seen any accountability. Will there ever be any prosecutions?
Well, look, that's the important point of what came. I said this on your show, 3 or 4 years ago, whenever the raid happened. And then it took until just last week when the news broke that, yes, what I said 3 years ago was actually true. They were looking for that document that you have in your hand. So what does that mean? That means that I think that Mar-a-Lago, President Trump and his family are at the center of this. I think that in Florida, this now puts jurisdiction clearly in Florida. And that's how you get accountability, is by bringing criminal charges, criminal investigations in Florida against people who perpetrated this on the American people. Because, look, as we know, we've got all kinds of problems in the court systems. Anything that ends up in the broader DC area or in a blue state is problematic. The beauty of this is that the jurisdiction now, because of that evidence that came out in the past week, that they were looking for that document at Mar-a-Lago, I think that's the center of this whole investigation, because it was preposterous. It sent messages all over the globe that America now is a third world country where we're raiding a former president's home. It was a message sent around the world. It now has to be cleaned up. People are going to be held accountable. I strongly feel that way. And this was an important piece of evidence that came out in the last week.
Well, I mean, what if it doesn't get concluded while President Trump is in office? What if President Trump finishes his term and leaves office? Does everything go away?
Well, look, I think if President Trump leaves office, it will depend on who follows in his footsteps. But you can't take 10, 15 years of corruption and clean it up in 10 months. But that's what I know that Kash Patel, Attorney General Bondi, they're doing their best to get it done. And look, let's see. A lot of evidence has come out. First, you got to get the facts, you got to get the evidence, and then you have to build the case. My guess is that there'll be multiple investigations that are ongoing right now.
And the Jack Smith behind closed doors interview. What is your takeaway there? He said politics had nothing to do with anything that he was doing, Devin.
Right. Jack Smith is a leftist. He's a very dangerous man who's been at the center of power, working with Obama's top people. He's known as their henchman, the guy that they sent in, their fixer, so to speak. So whatever Jack Smith says in public, he actually means the opposite. Or another way to say it is, whatever he accuses you of doing is what he's actually doing.
Yeah, and I've seen that before many times, as the Democrats have liked to say in the past that President Trump is a threat to democracy, while in fact they are in the middle of obstructing democracy by selecting people instead of electing people, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. And that's where I think these investigations need to go. And look, ultimately, justice delayed is justice denied. But I feel strongly that the team that President Trump has in place is going to track all these issues down and hold people accountable.
All right. Well, you tried to hold people accountable when it came to social media. You got in the job to run Trump Media and Technology Group and created Truth Social with President Trump and built that company. Now you are merging the company with TAE Technologies, a nuclear fusion company. We're going to have a break right now. When we come back, I want to get your take on whether or not this is a completely new direction for Truth Social. And what happens to social media now that you're in the energy business? We've got more with Devin Nunes when we come right back. Stay with us on Sunday Morning Futures.
Trump making money. Money today, money tomorrow.
Nunes, the CEO of Trump Media and Technology Group. Devin, you made a huge announcement this week, a $6 billion merger with TAE Technologies. This is a nuclear fusion company. Tell me what you're doing here, and the future of this company will look very different.
Yeah, look, it's a big issue going forward for the next 20 years. America is leading the AI race, electric cars, moving everything to electric. There's only one problem. If you don't produce enough power and enough energy, you can't win that race. And so as we look at the most important issues at the highest level, we solved the technology front, built it all ourselves to build True Social and our streaming component. We built that without big tech. Then we started looking around at, okay, we're a company, Trump Media Technology Group, that's going to do big things. That's what people expect of us. And what's the most important issue at the highest level? The country needs to be energy independent. So I always say that President Trump didn't need another company when he created this. It was a company that was created out of necessity because we needed our voices back. And now what we have is a juggernaut of a company that can go in and take on the biggest issue that's out there today. And we looked around at all the different fusion technology and other nuclear technology. And I strongly feel that TAE, with their 400 engineers and scientists, they are best positioned to win this fusion war. That it really is the start of a war on who's going to be the first to accomplish this. Remember, Maria, this technology has been around for some 75 years. It's just that for whatever reason, the United States 20 years ago decided to get into windmills, solar panels, and everything else, while China was building nuclear power plants, coal plants, et cetera. So, when Admiral Rickover, a name that everybody should get to know, was the father of atomic power. This next generation, so that was old school fusion power, the nuclear reactors you see now that a lot of people don't want in their backyard. The beauty of fusion is that it's clean. And I know that President Trump, and I talked to him a couple of years about this. He had an uncle that was very involved early on in this technology. In his office in Mar-a-Lago, he has some pictures and information on his uncle. This is something the president worries about. He worries about nuclear proliferation and wants to make sure that the future is clean. And look, this is the holy grail. Like I said, 75 years. And now this company, 25 years of private funding, Maria. This has not been some government subsidized deal. It's what I really like about them. They have had to do it the hard way. You had great investors like the famed Wall Street investor, Stanley Druckenmiller, who I know you know well. Chuck Schwab, another famed investor. You have Chevron, Google. So bringing those types of investors, looking at that, bringing them into our company with this technology gives me and just my background and studying these energy issues and working on these energy issues and nuclear power for my time in Congress. And then if you kind of match the level, looking at it at the defense intelligence level that I spent so much time on, China's doubled their electricity output in the last 8 years. They're now 3 to 4 times as much power as we have. These are real issues that we have to tackle. And I would say this now, all Americans should want our company to succeed, because if we win, everybody else wins. This is really as big as the first Manhattan Project if we're going to win this race here in the United States.
I guess what I want to know is, why would nuclear fusion be the answer? President Trump's agenda includes all hands on deck for lots of different energy. Why nuclear fusion to fuel the AI revolution? We're going to take a break. I'll ask you that. And I also got to get your take on China, an aggressive competitor and adversary. We'll be right back with more on Sunday Morning Future.
Well, there you have it, Sunday Morning Future. Sounds like Donald Trump is going to be making money way into the future. With fusion energy now, everybody got to sign up for that. Sounds like a great idea. But what do you think? If you enjoyed the video this far, give it a thumbs up. Just give it a like. Let's get the word out there and let people know what's going on. And let me just give a shout out to, here we got. All right, bring it on, buddy. All right, thank you for the shout out, Candy. And also, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to all of you guys watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream. I'm just trying to bring the latest news. And big shout out for those of you who commented. Give it a thumbs up. And yeah, Trump is doing amazing. This week is going to be another amazing week. Stay tuned, and I'll be back. Bring you guys the latest news and let you guys know what's going on out there on the streets. My name is Noel. Here at Verbal on Life, Verbal Freedom, whatever you're tuning into, just trying to keep you guys informed. With that said, see you guys in the next video. Peace.